Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to His Holiness Mahatma Das, all glories to my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. We welcome you to today's program. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for allowing us to host you. We are so fortunate to be in your presence. We invited you from South Africa because we always admire your programs. You teach with so much of enthusiasm, dedication, and patience, and you do it very happily. So I was inspired by the way you teach people, and you're very accessible to people in the public, your social media, your social platforms. So we have Dr. Usha Rupnarayan. She's a sociologist and a researcher, and she's also a previous Minister of Parliament in the House of Assembly in South Africa. So she's kindly agreed to assist with welcoming you, and hopefully she'll do the close as well. So we welcome Dr. Usha Rupnarayan to welcome everybody. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. I want to say I'm extremely honored and extremely humbled to be afforded this opportunity to welcome His Grace Mahatma Das. And as we all know, Mahatma Das is the great soul or great sage, a person of spirituality. So it is such a humble request and honor to have you share our screens this evening. And I believe you're going to share with us, your journey of Krishna consciousness. And as I read your bio and I read on social media, you're actually an initiator, guru of ISKCON, a preacher, an author, and a Sankirtan leader. I know you're very renowned in music. We heard it earlier. Also, Your Grace, you're a direct disciple of Sri Prabhupada, and you're well known on social media. I mean, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you've used the social media platform very well. Bhakti journey are all there. You've also shared lessons, workshops on anger, humility, forgiveness, on discipleship. And I think this is very, very apt and appropriate for the world and this age of COVID and negativity that we live in, and where we strive to become more Krishna conscious. His Grace, I also believe you have your own apparel. I looked at some of the items online. So, and I also know that I read that you're an excellent cook. You're also a dad to a beautiful daughter. You live in Florida, and you've lived in 14 different temples. Wow. And I'm extremely honored. I didn't know from where to start when I was given this honor to introduce you, because I read so much and I was so overwhelmed with all this respect and all this humility. And I said, I'm deeply privileged to be able to introduce you this evening. And even when I looked on the website, there was so much of teachings on discipleship, on humility, and even Krishna consciousness and that spiritual journey, bhakti yoga, your own music. So I'm deeply, deeply honored. And, I wanted to keep this as short as possible to be able to give you the space to share with us.
Short is good.
So with those words, and I know, on your Facebook page, you say that we must use our weapons, to fight the war of Maya. And you also say that we must know the strategies and the effectiveness of these weapons. So I'm hoping this evening that you will actually help us, you'll empower us, you'll enlighten us, and you'll educate us. So I'm deeply, deeply honored to introduce you. With those words, I warmly welcome you, His Grace Mahatma Das. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
So, Paramatma Prabhu asked me to start with kirtan. Is that correct?
Yes, Maharaj, we can please, because sometimes people join in a bit late, so we don't want them to miss the talk,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just chant for a few hours.
And your kirtan is very nice also. Sorry, Maharaj?
I was just joking. We'll chant for a few hours.
Okay. You're welcome to chant in the end when you finish.
Namayam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Naminiti Namine Namayam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shanyavadi Puschacha Desatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Puschacha Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutare, Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvisesa Sannivari Paschat at this time. Welcome to everyone. Nice to be with you. Nice to see you. I just wanted to read the title. So I'm looking for the poster. And the title says, How to Deal with Our Humanness. And it's an important topic, an interesting one. I would like to start by asking Paramatma, or maybe Dr. Rupanarayan, or any of you, specifically what you were thinking of addressing, a particular problem in how we deal with trying to be transcendental and being human at the same time. Was that the specific idea, Paramatma Prabhu?
I think Dr. Usha Rupanarayan can describe the topic more.
Or you could ask a question, which would
I see
lead
there is a comment from someone, a request to unmute. Sorry, we did mute everyone, so we don't disturb the class. But if you want to, now the Maharaj is asking if you have any questions, so you can unmute yourself. It's Gabriela. Can unmute herself, please. And I think she has a question. And Mataji, do you like to talk more about the topic itself, Dr. Usha Rupanarayan? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through a very difficult transition time right now. I think for most of us here in South Africa, we come out of a time of violence, unrest, rioting, and so also the COVID pandemic. It's created this blanket of negativity. And in this time, we begin to question our life, our purpose, our being here, our humanness. And what are we? Where are we going? So it is all these questions. I think everything, disease, death, life, all of these questions have become something now we have to deal with on a daily basis. And because of the negativity of the pandemic and its effects, we've lost many families. We've seen families decimated. We've seen violence in our society. And we begin to question, not just in the intellectual sense, but on a transcendental level, what is the meaning of humanness? What is the meaning of this life, and how are we supposed to live it? How are we supposed to seek answers, and where are we going to go for these answers? I think that's essentially what we're trying to ask Prabhu and His Grace.
How do you deal with what the world's throwing at you? When you were speaking, I was thinking It's easy to deal with the world when it's not throwing anything at you, isn't it? And although what it's going to throw is right, it's just behind the curtain. It could be thrown at any time. But for most of us, our lives are fairly normal most of the time. And it's been a bit abnormal now, obviously, like you're saying. And so this abnormality is, I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing and also I'm seeing is that this abnormal situation, and even more so in South Africa, is bringing out a lot within us that maybe we didn't know, a lot of the bad or the stress or the fear that we didn't know existed within us, that because it's like a trigger for all these things. And I think it's surprising for some people when they start looking at what's going on inside. They didn't realize that situations could cause them to become depressed, for example, normally happy people. One of the things that I think we can learn, especially as devotees, is the value and necessity of social interaction. And on our own, we are just dealing with our own minds. Our own negativity can get the best of us. That negativity is neutralized or turned around in the association of people who are more positive than ourselves, or who become positive by being with us. Sometimes you can even take two negative people and it will create a positive, isn't it? Two people who are having difficulty and they come together, and just to be able to share the difficulty, it will neutralize them, or at least to make it more, they'll be able to cope better. So one of the things I'm noticing most because of COVID is that we as humans are not meant to be isolated from one another. We don't function well that way. And the world is a bit of a difficult place. That's why we look for community, family, community, etc., because there's a lot that we can't do on our own. I think also what's happening for you in South Africa, similar things are happening, although not the same thing, but similar things in the sense that problems are coming up which we maybe didn't want to admit were as bad as they are, or maybe we didn't know they're as bad as they are, and then they come to the surface. And I think this is a bigger problem than I thought. And then we go back and realize what caused the problem and how we were negligent in being proactive. And now it just hits the surface, and we start to confront realities of that maybe we wanted to pretend aren't there or wouldn't manifest. And it's one of the interesting things that I find is that in any scripture, whether it's Bhagavad Gita or from any other tradition, there's always the concept that this world is temporary. We're all going to die. We don't want to die. And there will be things that will happen we can't control. And we will become sick from time to time. And obviously we will get older, and we will have enemies, or at least people that aren't nice to us. And there will be challenges and difficulties. And when you read about it, it's easy to read about it when you're not faced with it. But when you stop reading about it and it comes knocking at your door, it's completely different. And I think that's part of what the problem is now. And it's often difficult to understand when you're reading something, whether you understand it or not, until it actually happens. Just yesterday, a devotee came to see me. His father recently died from COVID. And he said, I was really hurt by it. And I didn't think that would happen. I didn't know. I'm a devotee now. He's not a devotee. I haven't lived with him. He said, but we talk every week and he helps me, and now he's not there. And I really feel something missing in my life. But he's, basically what he was saying is I couldn't realize that until he left. So one thing that the current situation does is it helps us understand more about ourselves and where our weaknesses lie. Because when we're confronted by these challenges, we see as this devotee saw, we see that human side within us. And especially when you're practicing spiritual life and you're chanting every day and you're studying scripture, it's easy to think that you're transcendental to these things, or you could, because they're not around you, and intellectually you're understanding them. And so sometimes when you intellectually understand something, you think you understand it if you're not confronted with it, like when America went to Afghanistan 20 odd years ago, basically people were thinking in a week it would be over, the war would be over. The Afghanis could not deal with the American army, but it was a different war. And so they weren't prepared for that war. They just thought they were because America's got the best army, right? So it's can we mute everybody and then I'll just unmute? Is it possible? Get myself. So in a sense, the difficulties we're facing are actually, one thing, they can be helpful. We might even say in some cases necessary, just to know, just for us to know. Do you really understand this? Well, how do I know? I'm a boxer and I say I can defeat the world champion. Well, how do I know that? Well, because I feel I'm more capable, more fit, sharper, whatever. But you don't really know until you go in the ring and find out. And many people went in the ring and found out that they were wrong. So I think what we're seeing also is a realization that as we begin the process of transcendence, or even not beginning, as we go through it, we're still engaged in a physical body and we're still conditioned by our past. And that conditioning, I think we're seeing, is often deeper than we thought. And so, when I look at the word humanness, I think I'm a spirit soul in a physical body, and the physical body and mind and ego and intelligence is situated in the material world. And as I become more advanced, I begin to transcend the material world. But in that process of advancement, we find that we have many human frailties, and they're sometimes shocking. Like, I don't know if you have that experience. Do you ever react to a situation in a way that afterwards you tell yourself, I can't believe that I did that. I didn't even think I had it in. Like, you become really angry, or really whatever it may be, greedy, lusty, envious, and you didn't even realize that you had that in you, at least to that degree. And that's happened to me. It happened to me when I was about 25 years old. That happened to me. And I thought, I was in a situation which triggered a response, and I thought that I was beyond responding that way. I thought it was just over that. I've been a devotee for 5 years and I'm over that. And it was such a revelation to me when temptation came and I gave in, at least partially, to a temptation I thought I would never give into. And it was very sobering and very strengthening, because it was a reality check, but it also showed me what my boundaries are, where I can't I can't go into certain environments and come out unscathed. I can't get too close to the fire. So, when you talk about the human side, one of the big thoughts that came to me when we first discussed this topic was, when you're trying to be spiritual, acknowledging the humanness sometimes is difficult or even impossible, like pretension, pretending that I'm spiritual. And so kind of not acknowledging the weakness. Obviously, if you don't acknowledge it, you can't do anything about it. So if you don't think you have a weakness, and the other side, of the flip side of that, is being well aware of the weakness and being depressed by it. So one side, some of us say, no, I'm perfect. I'm transcendental. I know Bhagavad Gita. I know all those verses. Wise never lament. People can die. So many people, what's ever going on in the world, it's all Maya. Who cares? And the other side, I'm well aware that I do care and I am affected. And then I feel guilty about being human. And possibly we could even say that some of the people who think they're transcendental want to think that way so they don't have to feel guilty about being human. They're afraid to admit it because it would be like admitting failure. And so they'd rather just pretend like they're not human. The other problem is that we become afraid to express human emotion because we think it would be degrading, because I'm trying to be spiritual. And so if you have a problem and I feel very upset by it, by the problem, upset in a good way, I mean that I care about you and I care about the problem and I feel upset about it. I might be thinking, no, I shouldn't. That would just be, I'm lamenting. Lamentation is not a spiritual attribute. And I shouldn't be lamenting. I shouldn't show these emotions. If I'm spiritual, I wouldn't have emotion, or not these kinds of emotions. But then you get all locked up in suppressing emotions. And then, then you end up sick and you wonder why. Why am I sick? All I eat is carrots and lettuce. Yeah, but you're drinking poison through your brain, right? Isn't it? So I think this is somewhat of a challenge for people on the spiritual path. Like, is it okay to express human emotion, or is it degrading to express human emotion? And I don't think we can generalize for every situation, but it can be very unhealthy not to confront actually how you feel. Even if the feeling is considered contaminating or unhealthy. But to block the feeling is kind of blocking a reality that you're dealing with. So sometimes I joke, we were having class last night and I was joking. A devotee tells you they're going through a really difficult time or they've had some physical problem. And you say something like, well, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the wise never lament for the living or the dead. So, just get over it. What's wrong with you? Why are you lamenting? No, but my father, mother, and sister and brother and Uncle Aunt, they died in an airplane crash. Not the body, Prabhu. Don't you know that? You learned that, 20 years ago. What's wrong with you? So, not that we would do that, but not that it hasn't been done by someone who just doesn't understand. But there is that tendency to think, well, if I'm lamenting, is it wrong? Because really, Krishna says you shouldn't. And who would say it's wrong if your parents' family died in a plane crash, if you're lamenting? If you weren't, we would think, why aren't you lamenting? What's wrong with you? We would think the other way, wouldn't we? Unless you're completely transcendental, then we'd understand, oh, he's transcendental, he's not affected. But if you're not, it would be kind of like artificially shutting down. artificially shutting down so I can, as a coping mechanism, I just won't feel anything and I'll pretend that I'm transcendental. So we're not trying to do that because the point is that sometimes we're taking philosophy and then applying it as if we're self-realized, but actually we're just intellectually realized, but not self-realized. And there's a difference. And sometimes you can't tell the difference. But if I'm only intellectually realized, then I'll have to suppress emotion to not lament, right? If I'm actually self-realized, I see clearly everyone's karma. I see clearly their spirit soul. I see Krishna's hand in everything. That's why I wouldn't lament. But if I'm not seeing that way and I don't lament, it's probably because I'm suppressing my human side in the name of intellectualizing Bhagavad Gita concepts that I have no real ability to realize fully. And then that you're kind of in an unnatural state. And then you kind of lose touch with your emotional side or human side. So a lot of devotees have pointed out that Prabhupada often was sarcastic, or he would tell jokes. And typically the caricature of a sadhu is not one who tells jokes, right? It's one who's sober, serious. They smile. Yes, they smile. They hold flowers. They pat people on the head. But, not like, they're serious, But Prabhupada, of course, was serious, but sometimes he would have a very human side. I was just reading a story. A devotee was sick in India. He was actually Prabhupada's servant, and he needed to go back. He felt he needed to go back to America. He said, Prabhupada, I have jaundice, or I think he had jaundice, yeah. He said, I think I'm not healing here in India. I need to go back to America. And Prabhupada said, yeah, then you should go. You should take care of your health. And this devotee was serving and massaging Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said to him, he said, the devotee said, you don't mind if I go? And Prabhupada said, you've saved my life. It's because of you I'm alive. Of course you can go. So, this devotee had many exchanges like that with Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada's the founder Acharya of ISKCON, the guru. But there's this other side, which is very real. It's, it's just, this is how Prabhupada feels, and he expresses it. He expressed concern when disciples left. He was sometimes lamenting when disciples left. If he heard any news that disciples were in dangerous situations, very concerned. So it doesn't mean that when you're a devotee, you don't have these feelings. You're just like a rock, and one might think that way in an immature state by reading Shastra, that you don't have feelings. You transcend them. So I think the real question is how to deal with that reality, that humanness, in a way that the humanness doesn't degrade us, and in the way that we can process it so it can help us become more Krishna conscious. And like you're saying, Dr. Rupanarayan, how, let's say we're using the example here, the boy's father dies, and he feels a loss. What's the use of denying the feeling of that loss, right? That would be foolish. But now that he feels it, he goes back to the Bhagavad Gita. Instead of pretending he doesn't feel it, he goes back to the Bhagavad Gita and he starts thinking of it. And it's always easier to think philosophy after you get over the pain, the emotional pain, right? It's hard to think philosophy during a time of emotional pain. And that's why when someone is in emotional pain, if you speak philosophy, it can make it worse because they may not be ready to hear it, right? They just want support. So now in retrospect, he can start processing it philosophically and processing, like I said, this reality that he was way more attached than he ever thought. Like, and sometimes you don't realize how attached you are to something until you lose it. I've thought in the past that I was completely detached from something until I lost it. And then I realized actually I was completely attached to it. And I actually had no idea that I was attached to it. I thought I would be happy if I just could get away from this situation. And I got away from the situation. And then I realized that I actually needed that. It is very, very interesting, right? So that's my realization, is that when you understand philosophy, it can make you think you're more transcendental than you are, because I understand I'm not the body. Okay, I can clearly see it. I'm conscious of my body, and I understand that my mother's not the body, my father's not the body, and so forth. But when one of them dies, all of a sudden, whatever attachments I had could come out very strongly. And I may have thought I don't have any. A lot of devotees left their parents, especially us in America in the 70s. We left our parents, left the family, became devotees. And some devotees never even spoke to their parents when they became devotees. Didn't even tell them. They just had that kind of relationship. The parents didn't know. They didn't want their parents to know what they were doing. And they may not have spoken for 10 years. And then now they're 50, 60, 70 years old and their parents die. And they say, I never realized how attached I was. It's just very interesting for me to watch this. So I don't think it's good to deny our human side or express it. But I don't think it's good to give into weakness also, because we have a system. We have a philosophy and a practice that can help us deal with it. But I have an experience. It was something really disastrous happened to me. It was a very interesting experience. This was in 1987. Something very, very heavy happened to me, and I was suffering, deeply suffering. And I was visiting India, and I was in Calcutta at the time, staying in the temple. And I was really, really lamenting. But when class would start and I listened to class, I was fine. I just forgot about it. I was just listening to the philosophy. Everything was fine. And class was over, like right when he said class is over, I went right back to it. It was amazing. It was like there wasn't even a grace period. It was just like, boom, back to the lamentation. Or when we would have kirtan or some festival or something, I would go right out of it. And when it was over, I would go right into it. So it was very interesting for me to observe that, because it showed me something which is so interesting, is that sometimes we think we're transcending something when we're actually just flying above it for a few hours. And it's actually there within us, but it's like flying above the clouds. Oh, it's sunny. No, it's not sunny. It's cloudy. You're just above the clouds now. But when the plane goes down, you'll be back in the clouds. So it was like, by the power of bhakti, I was transcending it. And previously when I transcended, I just thought, oh, I'm transcending it because I'm transcendental. Now I understood I'm transcending it because the Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental. And I'm not remaining transcendental after I stopped hearing the Bhagavatam. So it was an interesting experience. So these are the human realities we have to deal with. The last thing I want to talk about, which is extremely important and many of us are challenged with, is we don't like being human. It's not fun. If we could be superhuman, transcendental, super mundane, it would be a lot easier, because that way we would never be upset, we would never be affected, we would be transcendental. Life would be way easier. And so when we see our human side, sometimes it can appear to us disappointing. It can appear ugly. It can appear confusing. Like, I'm a devotee. Why am I thinking this way or feeling this way? I wasn't feeling this way yesterday. Everything was fine. And you know, just like I said, that when misery comes to your door, it's a different experience. So when you're confronted with your humanness, like, we know what conditioned nature is, but when you're confronted with it, it can be extremely discouraging. It could make you feel like, well, I chanted, and still I feel this way. And I've done so many things. I've done service, and I feel, why? But to me, I think there's two things. One thing is that to understand how deeply conditioned we are, and that being human is as human frailties will be with us for a while as we become purified. And the second thing is being able to accept it as something that I have to deal with in a way that doesn't discourage me. Like, this is just, like, I wish I wasn't envious. Don't you wish you weren't envious? Wouldn't life be easier if we weren't envious? Like, if I had no other desire than just to serve, you know, there was nothing in my heart other than desire. I don't want to get anything from anybody. I don't have any other ambition for name, fame, wealth, anything. I just want to serve. Life would be way easier, and we would be way happier, right? So when we experience that, it can make us think we're not making advancement. We can become discouraged. What's the use? Why try? And I think a lot of us don't realize how deeply conditioned we are. And simultaneously, how powerful the spiritual process is, but how long it takes. Because it doesn't seem so powerful because it takes so long. But one life is not long. And maybe you're practicing Krishna consciousness for 5 years. It's not very long. You might think it's long because, 5 years, you can get a PhD. So it's like, well, I did Krishna consciousness for 5 years. I should have a PhD in Krishna consciousness. No, but you have lifetimes of conditioning to deal with. So some acknowledgement of that reality is important. And always remembering that no matter what our human side is dishing out to us, we can always do better. And we don't have to give into it. So I may be envious of you, but I don't have to express it. I can keep that privately and I can work on it. And I have bhakti, so that means I have the most powerful process to help me with this. So I can overcome it. I can purify it. So that's important to know. But at the same time, I have to accept my humanness, whatever it is. When I was a young devotee, I was conflicted between getting married and taking sannyas, which is a false dilemma, because if you have that conflict, you should get married, because people taking sannyas are thinking, should I stay brahmachari or sannyas, not should I get married or take sannyas, right? Those are not the two choices you make. It's whether should I stay brahmachari or should I get sannyas, not should I get married or take sannyas. As soon as you have that dilemma, should I get married or take sannyas, you should get married. The sannyas is not for people debating whether or not they should get married. But I had that dilemma, and it was very strange, because why would I be thinking about both at the same time? It doesn't make sense. But what became more and more obvious is that I had both sides. It's like I had two different persons in me. Like both were, I wouldn't say the marriage one was really strong, But the renunciation one was quite strong, but I wouldn't say the marriage one wasn't there. It wasn't absent. It was there. So it was uncomfortable. I didn't want both. It would have been easier just to have one, right? But I had both, and I still have both to this day. And but at least I acknowledge it, and I've learned how to deal with it, so I can be a grihasta and be a good husband and be a good father, and the same way we live a basically renounced life. But I was very aware of it, and I was aware of it, and I didn't like it, but I had to work with it. So I think that's the reality we're all dealing with. We all have certain natures, you know, and we don't like everything about ourselves. We like some things, but we don't like everything. And it's really a question of dealing with that nature. I'm just going to get rid of a little sunshine. The sun is beaming in here. Viva Swami entering my room. So, we started with the question, how do we deal with all of this? The beauty is that everything we need to know was always known to us. It's all there already. And what we're already studying and what we're already doing, the answer is there. But the challenge is, how do you take those answers and apply them in minute detail to what you're dealing with right now? So like when you're seeing political upheaval and it's depressing you or causing fear, like what's my future? What's going to happen to our country? Or you're losing relatives to COVID. It's like, okay, now I know the philosophy, but now I have to go back and think, okay, how am I going to use that philosophy that I know in this situation to help me cope with this? And what I found is that oftentimes it takes going much more deeply into the philosophy to kind of read between the lines sometimes where it's not so obvious. And then things start coming out of the philosophy and you go, oh, this is how I deal with it. At least that's my experience. There's, like I was saying earlier, or maybe saying it another way, there's a lot more in the philosophy than meets the eye, but you may never know until you're confronted with the difficulty and have to find the solution in the philosophy. Does that make sense? Like, you know, it's just philosophy. It all sounds good. You can teach it to everybody. But now you're confronted with a situation and you need more to deal with it. And so, okay, well, I need to like expand the meaning of this in such a way that it's going to work for me in this situation. Maybe there's things I didn't understand about this. Maybe there's a lot more to it. And you will find that there is a lot more to it. At least that's my experience. I guess we could retitle this lecture, The Difficulty of Being Human. It's a lot easier to be superhuman, transcendental. And I think it's also, you know, there's another point which is it's interesting. That sometimes when you become a devotee, being human becomes more difficult because you realize how human you are, because you're trying not to be. Isn't it? You go, God, I'm worse than I thought I was. Well, you're not worse, you're actually better. You just now realize what better is. So relative to better, it doesn't look so good anymore. Isn't it? You ever had that experience? You go and shop and you go, wow, look at this. It's only 100 Rand, you know, and the cover is beautiful like that, you know. And then you look to the next one, it's 900 Rand, and you see what it is, and you realize, oh, this thing is not good. That one for 100 Rand is not good. It look good, but now by reading the label of the other one and seeing the size of it, and it's made of metal, not plastic, and the warranty, I go, oh, okay. So sometimes it's like that, you know. Now I know what it means to be pure and what it means to be transcendental. So now I'm feeling, oh, I'm worse than I thought I was. And then the other problem is that it's really interesting that a lot of the things that aren't good about us are not, we're not even aware of them. So sometimes it's not comparative. It's just, I'm not even aware. But when I become a devotee, now I become aware. It's like I'm cleansing. So they're coming up to my awareness. Then that's part of advancement. You know, if you have a problem and you won't admit it, that's not good. But if you follow a spiritual process and you become aware of that problem, then it means you're progressing, right? That's what it means. It's just the problem is now you're aware of it. So it's kind of depressing. You were happier. Ignorance is bliss. You're happier when you didn't know what was wrong, right? I'm happy. Everything's great. You know, and I start chanting Hare Krishna and I realize, oh, actually, I really have a big false ego. I didn't know that. You know? Or, you know, actually, I'm envious of people. I didn't realize that. And so that's the hard part, because now I have to, like, what do I do now that before I didn't realize I had such a big ego. I thought I actually had no ego. Now I realize my ego is as big as the Himalayas. That's kind of depressing, isn't it? But rather than to be depressed, it's better we see it as, well, that means that we're actually becoming more self-aware. So we are becoming purified, but that's part of the purification. It shines light on our humanness, which is not, you know, sometimes you get to know yourself and it's like, oh, I wish I didn't know myself. I liked it better when I didn't know myself, kind of thing, you know. So those are some thoughts for now. And then I'm sure more will come out with your questions. So should I go to the questions, Paramatma, or any of you want to ask me to speak on further on anything I've spoken on?
Hare Krishna, if you can please unmute yourself if you have a question. Now, Maharaj, there is two questions on the chat. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Radha Priya asked me to share the class. Okay, there's one about chanting. This is Ananga Manjari Dasi. She asked, can one chant more? Will it help with challenges? Hare Krishna Maharaj, are you there? I think your computer has gone frozen. I think Maharaj will join us just now. If you can please unmute yourself if you have any questions. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Can you hear us clearly? If you can please unmute yourselves.
Yes, we can.
So Maharaj is asking if there's any questions. Mataji, if you can also just collect all the questions that you see and you can address it to Maharaj. I think there's a technical issue on Maharaj's side. If some of his disciples can please check on it.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Maharaj is back. Okay.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
I think we have a question from Ananga Manjari Dasi. She asked, can one chant more? Will it help with challenges?
Of course, but it may not be, you may need to do other things as well. It may not always be the sole solution. Although, you know, I was thinking about this question this morning, and there's various factors to consider. What is the problem? How severe is the problem? Who is the problem? Who is having the problem? What is the level of advancement of the person who has the problem? So the same problem may affect us all differently. So for one of us, we just chant and that's all we need to do. But maybe for another of us, the problem is much deeper and we're not as advanced and we may need to do other things, other help within bhakti or even outside. You know, it's like you have a disease and there'll be different prescriptions according to the depth of the disease, right? First stage cancer and last stage cancer require different treatments. And the Anaga Manjari, one of the best ways to answer that question is increase your chanting and see if it helps resolve the problem. You know, it's interesting because, as many of you know, I have taught forgiveness. And so I've taught it to people who've been devotees for years. But they actually needed the workshop and the systematic approach and the facilitation to be able to overcome it. Although in theory, by chanting, they should have overcome it on their own. But they didn't. So that's practical, I think.
There is another question. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It says, it's from Christy to everyone. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Does lamentation include only passing of a dear one, or does it cover a wider spectrum, past situations, etc.? And does lamenting mean one is in the mode of ignorance?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, okay.
You're right. You are right, Christy, on all three accounts. 3 times right. Lamentation is considered a symptom of those who are ignorant of spiritual reality. But of course, we know that lamentation is part of conditioned life, and there's so many things that can cause lamentation. But ultimately, we should understand that we have to be able to deal with lamentation because it'll keep us stuck in the lower modes of nature. Because that's where lamentation resides. But there's spiritual lamentation also, and that will help you.
Christy, are you happy with the answer? Christy is still there. I thought she left the group. Christy, if you can please show your camera. Is that okay with you? Answer suitable for you? Okay. So if there's any questions from anyone, you can please unmute and show your camera and ask your question. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Maharaj will answer a few questions and hopefully he'll take us into kirtan for a few minutes. Kirtan is so divine and blissful.
Krishna.
And there's a special welcome I see to Rajesh Debroy, is it? You can please introduce yourself, Rajesh Debroy. Hare Krishna, welcome to India.
Hare Bol Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Please accept my Dandvat Shashtang Pranam. Yeah, thank you so very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here and listening to his good grace here right now from India. And I'm loving the passion and the energy with the way he has expressed. Has made things so difficult yet so easy and so powerful. I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited and glad to put a question across as we are discussing. Got inspired by your talk right now. I'm fully charged up. 3 words. When I would seek your clarity. Okay. There are 3 words called gut, grit, intuition. When a situation comes up, when you see the very battle of Arjuna and how entire Bhagavad Gita has.
I think we lost the Prabhu. He had some technical issues there. I hope to get him back online.
The gods of the internet are conspiring against us today.
I think Christy had a technical issue as well, but she's back. If Christy wants to say anything. Maharaj answered your question. I hope it's suitable for you.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, I'm so sorry my internet dropped and I was dropped out of the meeting, but I will listen to your answer in the recording.
The answer was yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you know, as we know that something can be symptomatic of the lower modes of nature in the material world, and it can be one of the highest spiritual characteristics or qualifications or behaviors. So lamentation, you'll find intense lamentation wherever there's intense love, when there's separation. So, you know, we often say what is the lowest thing in the material world becomes the highest thing in the spiritual world, and vice versa. So lamentation is, you know, Krishna says lamentation is, you know, it's really characteristic of the mode of ignorance. But our philosophy is that lamentation and separation, viraha, you know, the pain of separation, is the highest. So I think that's interesting. What is closest to Krishna is spiritual lamentation. What is furthest from Krishna is material lamentation. So we're not against lamentation, we're just against material lamentation. Material lamentation is very self-centered. Oh, I'm so unhappy. I didn't get this. I lost this. So it's all about me. And spiritual lamentation is all about, I'm separated from Krishna and I want to serve him. And I can't tolerate being separated from him because I just want him to be there so I can serve him. So it's quite the opposite. Right? Yes? So, you know, like we have humility and we have pride, complete opposites, right? And humility, the way you become close to Krishna is through humility, and the way you become far from Krishna is through pride. Pride is the greatest distance between you and God is pride. The closest distance between you and God is humility. So the same thing. The greatest distance between you and God is mundane lamentation. The closest distance is transcendental lamentation. So I think in a discussion like this, it's always good to focus also on the transcendental nature of lamentation, or any quality, or like Prabhupada said, there's envy, spiritual envy. But it's all infused with service, and there's no material quality to it. So it doesn't embrace any of the qualities that envy here embraces. Lamentation doesn't embrace any of the qualities that transcendental lamentation has none of the nature of material lamentation. So I've always found that what we want to do is not be without emotion, but we want to be able to experience emotion in relation to Krishna. And that would be so when you try to suppress your emotion, you run the risk that you won't even experience any emotion in relation to Krishna, because you're just shutting everything off. So it's like you have to open the door to emotion, which means you could be letting in material emotion also. But if you know how to process material emotion, you can process it in a way that eventually it helps you. And the other thing also is like, you know, you lose a dear one, you are going to lament. It's not even like often you have a choice. Should I lament or should I not? My mother just died unexpectedly in COVID. You know, 10 minutes ago, she got COVID. Now she's dead. Should I lament? Should I not lament? Let me think about this. It's not the way the world works, is it? You're just struck, you're lamenting. So, but what we appreciate is that even though I'm lamenting, I know Krishna's there. I know I have Bhagavad Gita. I know I'm going to get through this. But to deny I'm lamenting, what doesn't make any sense. No, I'm lamenting, but I'm really not lamenting. Okay, I'm human, okay, I'm lamenting. I didn't think I would be hurt by this so much, but I am. Okay. So, and like, my father died, my mother died, my father-in-law died. And the experience ultimately turns into something very blissful because we know they benefited by raising us and we became devotees, and we know they benefited because we chanted to them, we gave them prasadam and so forth. So ultimately in Krishna consciousness, everything always, everyone lives happily ever after in Krishna consciousness. So if your mother dies and she's been given Tulsi and Radhakund water and hearing the holy name, even if she's not a devotee, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? And so even though you miss her, but then you think, wow, what an auspicious departure. And then you're happy. And you have that memory your whole life. You think, my mother died in such an auspicious time, in an auspicious way. And many of the devotees' parents died in very auspicious environments. So that's there. Is that okay?
Yes, that's perfect, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare.
So there's Rajesh Debroy is back online. Prabhu didn't finish his question the last time. Prabhu, would you like to complete your question? You went offline for a while.
Yeah,
Rajesh,
yeah.
There was noise. There was noise.
Is it okay, Prabhu? Is it okay?
I couldn't really hear what you were saying last time, so I think you'll have to kind of summarize.
All right, Prabhu, please accept my Dandvat Shashtang Pranam.
I heard that part. I heard I heard the first part, but when you start asking the question, then we got some noise.
That's so nice of you. Appreciate your point here. There's always a conflict, which there is a mind gets clouded with a lot of conflicts around. When we are chanting, you are in romance with you're in love with your chanting. Okay. When you step out of the chanting, you have a materialistic world to face on.
Yes.
And what you are covered with, not rest of the world is. Okay. So the first, when we step up our journey to the materialistic world, we cannot skip. We can swap, moving from one level to another level. However, you are in a different zone and the materialistic world in a materialistic zone. Okay. So when you are stepping up your journey, moving from your materialistic world to transcendental Krishna consciousness, how do we mix it well? I love the prasadam. I go and enjoy the prasadam. And prasadam, when you have a khichdi bhog, even what Steve Jobs had it, he felt in love. So I'm in love with that mixture of that prasadam. Yeah. However, how do we mix still well to get ourselves going? It's a first question to your esteemed self. And second is, there's always a conflict. You get charged up. When you repeat 16 rounds of chant, you are in heaven. You get fully loaded. Your gas is filled, right? So yes. And the other side is not yet. So how do you balance it up? And that's how it comes up. I have one more point to make here. That's where the gut, the grit, and the power of intuition. So when you have these three things on your way to your moving up your game, to up the game of Krishna consciousness. So what is that way to up your game to your next level? So what happens, old flow of anything is sometimes good, or sometimes it is the way it is. Okay. As we read the Bhagavad Gita as is, so similar way it creates the magical movement, right? So how do you what is your what you call it way ahead on this?
Yeah.
Over to you, Prabhu.
I'm going to start with some philosophy and then we'll work our way.
I'm so sorry, I couldn't get you.
We're going to. I'll start with some philosophy first.
Sure.
And then we'll evolve. What you're talking about is an obvious challenge. We can create a sheltered environment at home, like an ashram environment. And it's very easy to be Krishna conscious there, or we go to a temple, or we go to the Dham. It's very easy to be Krishna conscious there. And then we go out of the Dham back into the world. And the world, especially in Kali Yuga, is infused mostly with tamagun. Prabhupada said a little rajagun, little passion, mostly tamagun. So if we use an analogy, it's kind of like we're climbing up the mountain and there's air pressure under us, kind of like a rocket. And it's kind of just pushing us up and we're climbing up and we're kind of just floating up. That's the spiritual environment. And the material environment, it's kind of like there's people above us holding us down. Or we have a backpack of 100 kgs and we're trying to climb. So there's forces that are working against us. So everyone experiences that to one degree or another. And so the idea would be, could you maintain an environment in your day which was supporting you, even in the so-called materialistic environment? Could that be seen or dealt with spiritually? In a way that environment, there wouldn't be a duality anymore in your life, because you'd go out in the world and you'd have a spiritual vision with which and a spiritual way to deal with people. So it wouldn't degrade you, or not degrade you much, or wouldn't be an obstacle. So the first thing I want to say is, philosophically speaking, that is the way it is. There is really no material or spiritual world per se. Everything is spiritual, but it requires a vision to see that. So how can we say everything is spiritual? Well, sometimes people say, well, how can I be God, conscious in my office, because God's not there, but God's everywhere. I mean, that's our philosophy, right? So if God's everywhere, he's in your office. And also he's in everyone's heart, which makes it even easier to see him, because you may not see him in every atom of your computer screen, but you see him in the heart of people. And every person in your office is part and parcel of Krishna. And everything, all the money you make, you use either to maintain your family who are devotees, or to donate money to the temple, or support some project. So, and your life is dedicated to Krishna. So if we can start to see in our lives Krishna everywhere, then we're beginning to, we could say, not see a division between material and spiritual. The way the pure devotee sees everything is he sees everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is Krishna's energy. There's no place Krishna isn't. So when you're in that consciousness that there's no place Krishna isn't, then that duality of Krishna's in the temple and he's not outside, it starts to dwindle, not automatically and not intensely, but little by little. And then as you become more advanced, inside, outside, obviously inside is a better environment, but just imagine, Rajesh, if you went outside now, just walk down the street, and you could actually see everyone as Krishna's son or daughter, and you felt like everyone was your brother and sister. That would be like completely amazing experience. I mean, you can all try this. Just like imagine, all these people are actually my brother and sister. We have the same father. That's a completely different vision. Or you just imagine Krishna's in everyone's heart. He's giving everyone intelligence according to their desire. It's an amazing transcendental vision, even though we may not be able to be situated that way all the time. But it's a reality. And that you walk down the street and said, every house, every shop, everything in every shop, it's actually Krishna's. It belongs to Krishna. Every atom is Krishna's energy. And because it comes from Krishna, ultimately it's spiritual, because everything that comes from Krishna is spiritual. So the first answer to your question is that it has to start with the vision, changing the vision, and not making the duality. The second part of the equation is that in order to be able to not see those divisions that way, you have to have very powerful sadhana, like so deep in your study of the philosophy and deep in your chanting, that it carries with you. That vibration is carried with you. So rather than you becoming in any way denigrated by the environment, you're uplifting the environment. You've got so much Shakti. You're uplifting the environment. It's not working against you, but you're working, but your presence is donating to the spiritual environment of wherever you go. Now, if we give the example, like a devotee's like sunshine, so wherever he goes, it's bright, right? Even in a dark place. So the more you practice sadhana, the more you'll be like the sun. And so those dark environments, you will light them up by your presence, by your consciousness. And it takes time. What you are talking about, like being very Krishna conscious and then dealing with the world, I experienced that contrast when I was a young devotee, like black and white, total black and white. I would be doing so well in the temple, then I'd go outside, and an hour later I'd be like someone, it was like a balloon that someone just popped. I just lost my air. I have nothing in it. So it also does take time. And I think also, we want to be sensitive to the environments that we're in and how they affect us, because maybe we can't be in certain environments all the time, or maybe we need to chant extra rounds to be in that environment. Or maybe you got to go to Vrindavan, 1 month every 6 months just to be strong enough to go back out. Rajesh, in the 70s, Prabhupada asked us to go to India every year, to Mayapur and Vrindavan. And he said, these were all the devotees who were doing book distribution and preaching. He said, because that book distribution and preaching will wear you out, because you're coming in contact with a materialistic environment and materialistic people. So come and get rejuvenated. So there is that also, that it can be a difficult environment to be in all the time or too much. So my experience is that probably more important than anything is strong sadhana. And I've always felt with strong sadhana, I become a little bit like Super Prabhu, like with proper chanting, going very deep and studying a few hours Prabhupada's books and good association, then it takes a lot to wear me down, where without that, I wear down very easily. I'm just like ice cream ready to melt, rather than, totally frozen ice cream. That example Prabhupada said, men are like butter, women are like fire. So, when the man comes in touch with a woman, then he starts to melt. And Prabhupada said, you should stamp on the head of the men, keep in a cool place. So if we use this example, I would say sadhana is like the freezer for your butter. So you go out in the world, your butter is so frozen that even after 8 hours, it's still frozen, right? But if your butter is already melting and then you go out, in an hour, you're melted. So that's the power of sadhana. It makes you more solid. So I would say both of those, the vision of seeing everything as Krishna. And the last thing I would say is, and maybe perhaps the easiest thing is, Krishna teaches us we should have, we should be compassionate. We should act with integrity, with sense control, with tolerance, with patience. Between Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, you get all these qualities, forgiveness, and so forth. And when you look at those qualities, most of the time, those qualities are exhibited in relationships. Okay, I have to tolerate, the mosquitoes are biting, or tolerate the heat or the cold. But how many times do we have to tolerate the way people deal with us? That's usually the biggest, most difficult thing to tolerate, isn't it? And if we're talking about compassion, it's not compassion to my car, it's compassion to a person, and integrity with people, and forgiveness to a person. And so if I'm going to practice Krishna consciousness 24/7, then I have ample opportunity to practice it in my interactions with people, right? I mean, you ever interact with someone like in a very nasty way? Because they're, you're you're at the checkout in the grocery store and they're really slow and you're in a rush. And, we may do that, right? It's a chance here to practice Krishna's instructions by being nice to that person, being patient, being tolerant, being compassionate, whatever, isn't it? So if you look at Krishna consciousness as a practice which continues 24/7, which you can practice every day, all day, in every interaction, are you going to be patient, tolerant, forgiving, compassionate, kind, sense-controlled, equipoised, not prejudiced, and so forth in every interaction? And Rajesh, Krishna says something amazing in the 12th chapter of the Gita. He talks about this duality, honor, dishonor, heat, cold, etc. All the dualities we deal with. And so he says, if in the world you can live without being affected by duality, you become dear to me. So just by you tolerating the misbehavior of someone, or the bad driving of someone, or the boss or the employee that does something that's unpleasant, or whatever situation there is, just by tolerating that, Krishna says you become dear to him. So I kind of feel like every situation is like there's opportunity at every second to follow Krishna's teachings, because we're tempted, we have to tolerate. There's always people that are difficult. It's sometimes hard to be nice to people who take advantage of us and so forth. So that's how I think that last suggestion is how I've really see the easiest way to bring Krishna into the world 24/7, because you're always dealing with people and situations which require exhibiting all these, following all these instructions Krishna gives us. Second chapter, it's all about don't be, affected by duality. And let's say I say, oh, Rajesh, you're amazing. You're so smart. You're so this, so that. Now you're dealing with the chance that you could become affected by my praise. And Krishna says, one who's not affected by praise, now neutral. And the next day I say, Rajesh, you did the stupidest thing. I've never seen anybody do something that stupid. Now, not praise today, now defamate. And Krishna says equal in both. So, one day I praise you, you get a chance to take the middle path. Next day I chastise you, you get a chance to take the middle path. So there's always opportunities to practice Krishna consciousness. So we don't really have to leave it at home. The problem is, if we see Krishna consciousness as a set of rules and regulations, meditation and rituals and philosophy, then when we go out in the world, we don't see how to practice it. But if you just take Krishna's instructions and realize he was giving those instructions to Arjuna on a battlefield. And so we're going out in the battlefield every day. And those same instructions apply to us because we're battling with whatever battles we're battling with, right? Isn't it? He had to fight his grandfather, but your grandfather's going to die someday. So you're going to have to confront the same situation. Not even as difficult as Arjuna. And Krishna's giving you all the help. So that's how I see it. And I think this is, it's so important to realize this, because I think a lot of devotees, they have this difficulty of understanding how could I be Krishna conscious at work? And I'm thinking, oh my God, every interaction, every single interaction is an opportunity. How are you going to deal with this person when they mistreat you? What an opportunity. You're going to tolerate it. You're going to be nice, empathetic, understanding, compassionate, or just tell them off, And what I also find so interesting is that oftentimes devotees don't even see this. So that someone is unkind to them and they get back at them. They make their life miserable. And they don't even realize they're doing that. And they don't even realize devotees don't do that. And so they're acting out their humanness and they're not realizing that's not what Krishna is telling us to do. Isn't that interesting? You ever done that? Like done the opposite, what Krishna wants us to do?
Prabhu, I fully respect your views on it. I have some, some key points which are coming up back of the mind, and I would be glad to hear those answers on behalf of the group of people who are there, because I'm bubbling with some more 3-pointers which has come back. Sunshine, when you said, okay, how do you ensure as a devotee you're not burning with your own energy, which you are becoming like a dynamite, right? How do you ensure you're not exploding? Okay, what happens? Being God-headed makes you at times looks like bull-headed. So how do you differentiate, and what is the right way to go ahead and put your steps very consciously? Because God-headed it's something which is we call it higher taste. You will not see it in any capsule which you eat, will not get you what I am experiencing it or what I experience. Okay. Right. So when you are on a great, you are on a higher taste of enjoying spiritual bliss. Okay. How do you ensure that you are not like beaten by your own practices, which you are up to?
Yeah. Humility.
How do you stay safe? How do you stay safe with bubbling of a lot of energy, passion and whatnot comes up?
Well,
this is all the outcome of what you're doing it. Over to you.
Yeah. So the danger is that you start thinking you're better than other people because you have more spirituality, right? And you become critical, you become prejudiced, all these things. So humility the paradox is, if you say I'm bubbling over with spirituality, but I'm proud, you're not bubbling over with spirituality. You took the spirituality, but it actually pushed you into the material because it made you proud. So you have to see that, right? If I chanted good rounds today and I feel like I am so much better than everybody else, whoops, that's not Krishna consciousness. That's the epitome of material. That chanting, the bliss of the chanting actually made me more materialistic because now I think I'm better than others. And that's the epitome of material consciousness. So it's a trap and it's very subtle. So if you can catch yourself and go, oh, trap. So how do you deal with it? You go, gratefulness. I understand that this chanting has brought me up here. I am grateful to the Maha Mantra for bringing me, but I am nobody special. You see, it's like I go, Rajesh, come over to my house. I've got a Lamborghini. So you get in the Lamborghini, we're driving, and all the people are looking at you and they go, hey, they think I'm important. I got a Lamborghini, I'm the man. And I think, no, it's my Lamborghini. You're just Rajesh. You're the same person you were before. So the Maha Mantra is like it puts us in the Lamborghini and we can drive from 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds, right? But that's the Lamborghini doing it. It's not us. So we have to understand that by the mercy of the Maha Mantra, I'm up here, but I'm actually down here. That's who I am. And if I can see myself down here, I'm good. And that's how Prabhupada saw himself. After all his success, he always stayed down here. His both feet were always on the ground, no matter how successful he was. Does that make sense?
It does, quite close. While I understand that being neutral, how you are perceived by the world versus what you see yourself, I do understand, Prabhu. What comes first? Get rich, be spiritual, or be spiritual and you can be rich too. So when we talk of the philosophy, when we talk philosophy, it's well respected. When we talk of the reality, we have to create what comes first. It's like all the big thing which you talk of, a hen or there is a famous saying that who comes first. So it's all about when we look at the overall world, if you look at only a few percentage out of 7.3 billion people may be spiritual. When you talk or ask me what is the definition of spiritual, is for me, it's spirit you all. That's how I take spiritualism as, okay. But when we look at the percentile of that, like I hope you're getting what I'm trying to come to. The point here is who comes first and how do we manage or balance it up so that it is giving us a normal life and we are like happy-go-lucky, we cannot be as great as your good self is, because we are in a trap right now. We call it a materialistic trap. We cannot even, we have the clutches which are there just holding us back on, I am here. I sacrificed my family back at the back, and my daughter has come twice and asked me, oh dad, you just, where are you? I said, no, I'm here. Let me be here. So it pulls you back. But when it comes to Krishna consciousness, it's either me or nothing. So what is your way, or what is your recommendation? How do we balance it up so that there is a win-win all sides?
Yeah, you
because
have to
when I'm into Krishna consciousness, I'm in it to win it. But I cannot escape the rest of the world. And I don't have the power to empower people. I've been doing spiritual services. I got the best. To be honest with me, it's not me who got it. It's through Krishna, His mercy. I served the community in wherein lakhs of Bhagavad Gita we have distributed on the street side and the colleges everywhere with His mercy, Lordship's mercy.
Yes.
But that's not the entire world consists of. That's one portion wherein I go and serve the world, but that's not the entire world. So how do we balance it up? What is the way?
Very simple. Very simple. Just think how I connect everything with Krishna. The money, the daughter, the family, the house, whatever you have, the business, whatever you have, how do I connect it with Krishna? And it solves that problem. It's when it's like what you're saying is almost, and this is a common problem. It's like my Krishna consciousness is disconnecting me from the so-called material things, right? So the more I get into Krishna consciousness, the more difficult it is. My business making money, that has nothing to do with Krishna. No, my daughter, that has nothing to do with Krishna. No, you have to ask, how can this have everything to do with Krishna? How can all that money be used? How do I raise my daughter in Krishna consciousness? My family, how do I make them Krishna conscious? There's nothing that has to be separated. There's no dichotomy there, as long as you just ask the question, how can I connect it with Krishna? You want to hear a funny story? There was this Swami came to America. His name was Satchidananda. And Satchidananda, you'd see pictures of him like this. And what he was doing, he wasn't giving blessings. People were offering him money, and he would go like this. He would put his hands like this. We're renunciates. And Prabhupada, they told Prabhupada, and he said, Prabhupada, he said, we're like this. Give it, we'll use it. Give us all your money, we'll use it. So we don't have that dichotomy. All right, give us all your beautiful women. We'll put them out on book distribution and sell Prabhupada's books. Give us all your intelligent people. We'll engage them. So there's no duality. It's kind of the same answer as before. It's all one. Once you see it as two, you get a problem. Once you see it as one, everything is connected to Krishna. The only thing that's not connected is in my mind, it's not connected. But otherwise it's connected. So I just have to connect it in my mind. I have to connect what's already connected, but connected in my mind. I'm married. I have a daughter. I have a house. I have a car. I have everything. But it's all centered around Krishna, That's all. And now, my daughter will go to university. She's already gone a few years. And to think, well, how will I be able to serve Krishna? What educational field should I go in? Or if it's just an education where she feels like, well, I could make a lot of money. All right, so I'll make a lot of money. And how will I use that money in service? So it's always connecting. As soon as you disconnect, then it's like, okay, I'm lost now. It's Maya. Because all Maya means is disconnected from Krishna. That's all it means. You can connect practically anything with Krishna. Isn't it?
Yeah.
If you know how. If you know how, yeah. And so there's this idea of renunciation where, no, we shouldn't have money, we shouldn't have women, we shouldn't have big buildings, we shouldn't have all these, then we can be renounced. And Prabhupada said, that is a false form of renunciation. It's actually an attachment. I'm attached to being renounced. It's an attachment. Whereas Prabhupada was not attached to being renounced. He was willing to come, build these big temples, go have all these headaches, have all these crazy Western disciples, deal with all this money, publish all these books. That was his detachment. And even let his disciples pick him up in a Rolls Royce sometimes. That was his detachment. He'd be happy sitting in Radha Damodar temple, never having come to America and living in one room. He'd be happy. And now he's living in a palace. And that's his austerity, to live there. That's his renunciation. Right? Yeah. So it's an interesting point.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, we have another comment.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you. Mataji said, Hare Krishna Maharaj, beautiful class. I agree with sadhana to help us. Does also good association help? From Ananga, yes. Mataji.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Good association is like, it's like, you go to a doctor and they say, take this medicine, but right now take 2 a day, but right now take 4 pills, like let's knock it out. Associations like that, chant Hare Krishna, read Bhagavatam, go to the temple. But right now, you're in a serious condition, get association. It will cure you the quickest, So whenever we need an abrupt shakeup, association is always the most powerful. Association and the holy Dham, those 2 things. And of course, a blissful kirtan and Monday morning Khitri in Durban. Yeah, they're all good.
Prabhu, I think you have you got a very, very you got a magnet in you, which is letting me have some more questions flowing in now. Since I feel that I'm getting an opportunity to have myself expressed to the highest level. Okay, fight back or fade.
Fight back or faith.
Fade.
Fail. Fight back or fail.
Fade. Okay.
Fade.
Fight back
fade.
or
fade away.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So what is your view in that? So what is happening in the present scenario in the market, how the markets are evolving? Either you are into a fight back mode or you fade. So when we look at calm down, do this, don't do that, we have all the lessons given. And the very message of Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna also is to ignore rest of the world when it comes to few practices which like we cannot compromise on that, right? Having said that, some of the chapters are indicating that calm down, be the god of you'll be like a when I want to be like a spring, but I am supposed to be a sponge. Like I'm supposed to be that box, the boxers, they go and practice it, let people come and, beat me as much as they can. So I'm confused. So help me take out of this situation. So what is your view in?
Yeah.
What is your view? What is your recommendation? Yeah.
There's two things. I mean, one obvious thing is Arjuna is being told to fight. So he's not being told to fade, but he's being told to fight externally and fade internally, not be attached. So, let's go and do it. Just don't think that you're the man. I'm doing it. And you understand that? And this is what I want. And I will make it happen. You just act. And don't take credit for it because I'm doing it. And also, if Krishna wants you to do something, don't fade away from what he wants you to do. Just fade away from the ego of thinking you did it. That's the problem, right? There's a really interesting thing where Prabhupada would say, don't think you could make it successful. You make the effort and then Krishna will do it all. That's how you think. And he said, and even sometimes you may fail, but you didn't fail because you tried, even though you did fail, even though you didn't get the result. Because sometimes you make the same effort that you made last week, but you don't get the result this week because context is different, right? Something has changed, weather changed, people changed. It doesn't work, and so, but Prabhupada's saying that doesn't matter because the success was that you made the effort. So, and then whatever the result is like that. If Krishna wants it, he'll make it happen. If he doesn't, I make the effort on his order. And I try my best and I try hard. And I never think that it's because of me that I'm successful. And the more we're humble, the more Krishna will give us success. You want to hear a funny story? It's not funny. Well, it's kind of funny, but it's a beautiful story. There's a devotee who was the #1 book distributor in the Ukraine. It was probably 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And when you're the #1 book distributor, you get a lot of accolades and praise, and you're celebrated. You're the #1 book distributor of this year in this country. It's like, so, you get your trophy and your plaque and your Mahaprasadam and the praise of everyone. And he said that they had a festival in which he was praised, and it went to his head. And he said the next day when he went out on the street, he could not sell one book. Nobody would take a book from him. So that's the way Krishna works. He wants to teach you a lesson. If something's going to your head, he'll just go, okay, I will take your Shakti away so that you realize it was me who was doing it, not you. So remaining humble is always the solution. And then go out and fight, conquer the world. We want to take this planet for Krishna. There's nothing, we're not fading away from what we have to do. But we're not going to fight. We're not going to fight perpetually if Krishna is showing us the fight is a losing battle. We're not that dumb, right? So we'll choose another battle to fight. So, Prabhupada chose different battles. Let's preach here. Let's see what works, what doesn't work. Strategy. So we use our intelligence as well. Is that okay?
You get double thumbs up. With
Okay,
that,
thank
and with
you.
Shastak Pranam, Prabhu, you made me happy. Thank you so very much for making my day, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So now we have Kirtan Paramatma. Is that the plan?
Yes. Is anybody else that likes to introduce themselves? I see this Gabriela Delgado. She had some comments. Is there any comments you'd like to share, Gabriela Delgado? You'd like to introduce yourself? There were some comments you made. Sorry, I couldn't respond to you on the technical issues. And also some of the Maharaj's disciples from overseas, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Anybody from Durban? We have a student with us, Dr. Ravindra Chauhan, and his wife, Dr. Ruchika Chauhan. If you'd like to introduce yourself and make any comments. Okay, Mataji, I think it's a bit quiet from everybody. If you'd like to do the close off, Mataji, with Dr. Usha Rupnarayan, and then we can have some kirtan, whichever is first. Maharaj, like to do the kirtan first or vote of thanks?
Whatever she wants.
Mataji, I know you made some notes. We're going to share some of your notes that you made with us as a close off. And kirtan, maybe if Maharaj wants to carry on for how long he wants to, he can continue with kirtan until his next class. Thank you.
Next class is in 3 hours.
Yeah, I don't mind listening for 3 hours.
I have to eat lunch. It's my lunchtime.
Okay, Dr. Usha Rupnarayan.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, His Grace. Thank you so very much for the lecture. I think you brought so much into perspective, because you said that we're actually living in this mental cage. There's always pretension, denialism. And what we need to move towards is not material lamentation, but spiritual lamentation. I think this is where we need to rely on Krishna consciousness. And I believe when you answered a lot of questions, you spoke about the duality. And in all of this, we needed to remain humble. We needed to look back at our humanness. This is how we created. And I think that most importantly, it always takes us back to that chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Arjuna and Krishna are having this dialogue. And I think that's the essence of what we take with us this evening. I know, we keep saying we're human, we have emotions, we have thoughts, but we need to transcend. And sometimes being human means that we nosedive. We go into depths of despair, we go into depths of depression. But like you said, we also need to sort of transcend, ascend, lift ourselves up. And how do we do this? We do this by disconnecting from the material world. And you spoke about Maya so well. So I don't want to overshadow what you said, but there's so much of positive thoughts that we have. And I think you've empowered us, with so much of knowledge, because we came here this evening and we have a global audience. You know, Afghanistan is in the news, South Africa, India is in the news, and we can't really separate ourselves if it's, you know, death of a loved one, if it's the demise of society. But you've encouraged us, and I'm truly humbled. And we need to take this lesson of humility that you've taught us. We need to be grateful, and we need to spiritually lament and not materially lament. And I like that example of, you know, the Rolls Royce and the Lamborghini. Don't attach ourselves to material things, but attach ourselves to Krishna. And with these words, I want to say, Pranam, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You're welcome. Thank you.
Maharaj, thank you so much for all your time and, you know, all your special, you know, emphasis on all the small questions that came up. You know, you so carefully and patiently answered all the questions. Thank you for being so tolerant with us. Just a special thank you for those that are online and also bear with us. We've got Rajesh Devroy, thank you. Anup Bridge Mohan. There's Dr. Usha Rupnarayan. There's Gabriela Delgado. We've got Christy, Nikunja Sevadasi, Rasa Raj Das, Ruchika Chauhan, Sunita, Sydney, Tamani, and also Tanya Stajuja. So thank you all for bearing with us. We got Vishaka Devi Dasi as well with us. Thank you very much for being so patient with us. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, over to you, some kirtan. Thank you. Please lead us to the spiritual world now.
Let's dance.
Yeah.
Time to dance.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Go Premanandi, Hare Hare Go. Go Premanandi, Hare Hare Bo. Thank you all for coming.
Hare Krishna. Ki jai. His Holiness Bhakti. His Holiness Mahatma Das Ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. We will end now. Hare Bol.